Bilingual. I'm Laura Pantin of Learning Bilingually, and in today's video, I'm going to share some strategies and tips on how to stay in the target language in our dual language classrooms. One of the most difficult aspects of being an educator in a dual language program is encouraging our students, from the very littlest ones to our older students, to stay in the target language when they are on the Spanish side. Something to be cognizant of is that we must remember to be positive and encouraging when it comes to the language acquisition process, because it is just that, a process that takes time and patience and perseverance. Stephen Krashen, a prominent researcher in linguistics, describes the idea of the affective filter hypothesis, which indicates that a number of affective or social emotional variables, including self-confidence, motivation, and anxiety, affect second language acquisition. So our goal as dual language educators needs to be to create an environment where students feel comfortable, excited, engaged, and safe to take risks in order to produce and engage in the target language. So here are 15 tips to implement in the classroom that can help your students be engaged in and stay in the target language. Many of these tips can be used in conjunction with other tips from the list. Tip number 1, set clear expectations. It's important to establish a target language routine from day 1 in our classrooms. This also means that you as a teacher are using the target language from day 1. It's important that there is clear accountability in our classrooms. Tip number 2, utilize sentence stems. We need to make sure that if we are expecting our students to speak in the target language, we are providing students the language they need to communicate. Providing sentence stems for frequently used questions, answers, phrases in the classroom, and for their writing and reading responses will elevate the level of comfort students feel using the target language in the classroom. Tip number 3, incorporating an interactive print-rich environment. This means that we aren't just labeling our classroom and environment, but we're creating bulletins and using our board and wall space with interactive word walls, interactive academic language walls, frequently used phrases, and anything that we think will really help our students interact in the language. Tip number 4, have students create a language journal at the beginning of the year. This can be their own journal throughout the year of frequently used phrases, or if they don't know how to say something in the target language and you show them how, then direct them to write it down in their journal. At the end of the year, they'll have this journal that they can take home and utilize to continue interacting in the target language. Tip number 5, use a visual cue to remind students to stay in the target language. This can be done whole group or with individualized signals as well. Your visual cue can be as generic as holding up a number of fingers, or more related to your classroom in the form of an image, a picture, or a physical cue. Tip number 6, conduct frequent comprehension checks. Again, this can be done using a visual cue, thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways. This allows you to be checking in on your students throughout the day and during your lessons, and allowing you time to jot down and take notes of which students you see might need more help and more support engaging in the target language. Tip number 7, incorporating Flipgrid into your classroom. Flipgrid is a great online tool that allows you as a teacher to create and pose questions and activities that allow students to make connections to their own lives, what they're learning, and so much more. As a teacher, you can create a teacher account and then create a grid for each of your classes if you teach different groups of students, and then create and pose questions or activities for your students to do, and then they record a video response. This is great for the students because then they can prepare what they're going to answer, and this then reduces the anxiety that they might have of being put on the spot to speak the target language. I will link Flipgrid in the description below. Tip number 8, using individualized incentive charts. With this, each student gets their own small individualized incentive chart with a certain number of stars, smileys, hearts, or whatever you want on them. And as you hear your students using the target language throughout the day, they get a check or a stamp on their star, smiley, or heart. Here are some examples of individualized incentive charts. Estudiante brillante with all the stars, and the student name would go right here. Hashtag se habla español. Hashtag Yo amo el español. When they have their whole chart stamped, they get some type of reward. Maybe you have reward coupons, or you use a claw machine where they try to win a prize, or you have a treasure box where they can choose a prize from the box. And when they have chosen their prize or redeemed their prize, then they get a new chart. Tip number 9, incorporate a whole class reward system. You can have a class jar of pom-poms or pebbles or anything you want. And as you hear the target language throughout the classroom, you place however many pom-poms or pebbles you want inside the jar. And as they reach certain levels of the jar, they get class incentives and rewards. Tip number 10, incorporate games that encourage language fluency. Look at your standards and think, how can we use a game to practice this skill that will have my students talking in the target language? Some great games to adapt for your language classroom are headbands, pie face, guess who, and Jenga. Tip number 11, the mystery student method. Tell your students you're going to pick a mystery student every day. And if that mystery student has been using the target language throughout the day, then they will get a reward at the end of the day. This is a great way to keep your students excited and on their toes and really wondering who that mystery student is. Tip number 12, using collaborative pairings. This means that you are strategically pairing students to work with one another throughout the day on different activities. For dual language classrooms, this means pairing a Spanish dominant student with an English dominant student so they can help each other and learn from each other. Tip number 13, use technology to give students points when they use the target language. This method, just like the incentive chart, is supposed to be for praising students when they use the target language, not meant for punishing by taking points away. This can be used throughout the day and with different apps like Class Dojo or Seesaw. Tip number 14, use a password question answer system to enter the classroom or go from center to center or from activity to activity or however you want to incorporate it in your classroom. When I taught kindergarten, I had a weekly password posted outside of my room, which usually was an important word we had learned and had practiced the week before. So to keep reviewing it, they had to say that word every time they entered the classrooms. Students had to say this password, and really this allowed my students to not only practice this important vocabulary in the target language throughout the day, but also begin their day entering the classroom by feeling a sense of confidence and coming back into the classroom after specials and lunch and anything else, feeling a sense of confidence because they were already kind of speaking in the target language. Tip number 15, try to incorporate interpersonal speaking activities throughout the day. These can be short, structured opportunities for students to engage in the language. For example, creating opportunities for your students to practice conversations on topics they are learning about in class, or having a setup where students talk to 4 to 5 other students for about 4 to 5 minutes each on specific topics you have pre-planned that have to do with your unit and your standards. For example, if your students are learning about text features, then your 5 topics they will talk about can be 5 different types of text features. The students would talk about one type of text feature to one peer. Then after the timer goes off, they move and talk to the next peer about the next type of text feature. So remember to utilize comprehensible input, because if students' affective filter is low, then they will be more apt to risk taking in our classrooms and more apt to be engaging and producing in the target language. It's also important to remember that the language acquisition process is not static and linear. It can be messy and bumpy, and the challenges can sometimes feel insurmountable, but you are not alone. There are many strategies we can all implement to truly engage and excite our students to use that target language in our classrooms. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the video and are able to take back some of these tips into your own classroom and for your students. Please make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more dual language, bilingual education content. Adios!